The Krillian Empire had conquered 17 star systems, enslaved 43 species, and broken every warrior foolish enough to challenge their supremacy. In the deepest pit of their maximum security facility on Arcturus 9, they kept their greatest trophy, Varanth, the albino dragon from the dying world of Draconis Prime. His scales gleamed like polished bone under the harsh crimson lights. Chains forged from neutronium alloy bound his wings, his legs, his massive throat. The Krillians had captured him after a 3-year hunt that cost them an entire battle fleet. Now he served as their ultimate deterrent, a living nightmare displayed to break the spirit of anyone who dared resist the Empire. Varanth had stopped counting the years. Time meant nothing in this lightless cage where they fed him just enough to keep him alive, but too little to regain his strength. He had learned to retreat into the hollow spaces of his mind, to remember the silver moons of his homeworld, the thermal currents that once carried him above crystalline mountains. Then they brought her in. Seren Vale was human, though Varanth had never seen her species before. She couldn't have been more than 16 solar cycles old, small and fragile by any standard. The Krillian guards threw her into the observation cell directly across from his cage, close enough that he could see every detail through the transparent barrier. She didn't scream. That was the first thing that struck him. Most prisoners screamed. The Krillians had captured Seren's colony ship 3 weeks prior. She was the navigator's daughter, they announced over the facility's speakers, and she would serve as an example. Humanity had refused to surrender their outer territories. Now humanity would learn the cost of defiance. For 2 days, Varanth watched them hurt her. They used neural whips that set every nerve ending on fire. They used sensory deprivation that could shatter minds. They used methods the dragon had seen break warriors twice her size within hours. Seren Vale endured. Between sessions, when the guards left her crumpled on the cell floor, she would pull herself up. Her hands shook. Blood ran from her nose and ears. But she would meet Varanth's gaze through the barrier and she would smile. Not a broken smile. Not a plea for help. A smile that said they haven't won. On the 3rd day, the chief interrogator decided to escalate. Varanth heard him giving orders, saw the guards bringing in the molecular disruptor. The device would tear her apart at the cellular level, keeping her conscious through every agonizing second. They activated it. Seren's scream finally came raw and primal, the sound of a body being unmade from the inside out. Something ancient stirred in Varanth's chest, something that predated his captivity, his defeat, his resignation to death in this cage. His species had ruled the skies of Draconis Prime for 10 million years. They had been apex predators when the Krillians were still crawling through primordial oceans. And in that moment, watching this small human girl refuse to break even as they destroyed her, Varanth remembered what he was. The dragon's eyes, pale as starlight, began to glow. The Krillians had made calculations. They had measured Varanth's strength, tested the limits of his fire, factored in every possible variable. What they hadn't accounted for was rage, pure distilled righteous fury. Varanth's roar shook the entire facility. The sound wasn't just noise. It was a weapon in itself, a subsonic frequency that made the transparent barrier between him and Seren's cell crack like spider-webbed ice. The neutronium chains groaned. They had been designed to hold him at normal capacity, but Varanth wasn't normal anymore. He was burning through his own life force, igniting reserves he'd been hoarding for years. Reserves the Krillians didn't know existed. The first chain snapped. Then another. Then another. Alarms shrieked throughout the facility. Guards poured into the chamber, plasma rifles charging. The chief interrogator screamed orders, his voice cracking with panic. Varanth's wings unfurled for the first time in decades. Atrophied muscles screamed in protest, but he didn't care. He launched himself at Seren's cell, his body a white meteor of scales and fury. The barrier shattered. Guards opened fire, but Dragonhide that had evolved under a blue giant star didn't notice their weapons. He positioned himself over Seren's broken body, wings spread, a living shield. The molecular disruptor swiveled toward him. Varanth's jaws opened and he unleashed flame. Not the weak flicker the Krillians had seen in tests, but plasma running at temperatures found in stellar cores. The disruptor melted. The guards melted. The walls melted. Serene coughed blood, her eyes barely focusing. You came? Varanth lowered his massive head, gentle despite his size. His telepathic voice resonated in her mind. You did not break. Neither will I. He had enough strength left for one thing. Drawing on the last fragments of his power, Varanth wrapped Seren in the protective embrace of his wing and launched upward. His fire carved a vertical tunnel through 6 levels of reinforced architecture. Explosions bloomed behind them as containment systems failed. The facility's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. They burst into the night sky of Arcturus 9, and for the first time in 23 years, Varanth felt wind beneath his wings. Behind them, the facility collapsed in a cascade of secondary detonations. The Krillian Empire's greatest prison, reduced to rubble, all because they had tortured one human girl in front of the wrong dragon. Varanth's strength was fading fast. He wouldn't make it far, but cradled against his chest he felt Seren's heartbeat, steady and strong. She would survive. Humans, he realized, were remarkably resilient creatures. Where? Seren whispered. Where are we going? Varanth adjusted his trajectory toward a nearby moon, one with breathable atmosphere and caves deep enough to hide in. Somewhere they will never find you. And when you heal, you will tell your people what happened here. You will tell them that the Krillian Empire can be broken. He would likely die on that moon. His body had already used reserves that could never be replaced. But Varanth discovered he didn't mind. He had been a prisoner for so long he'd forgotten what freedom tasted like. Now, with the stars above and a brave human under his protection, the dragon remembered why his species had once been legends. Some chains are made of metal. Others are made of despair. Seren Vale had broken the second kind, and in doing so, she had freed the most dangerous weapon the galaxy had ever tried to cage. The Krillian Empire would learn too late that some things should never be provoked, especially when they're protecting their own.